Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV. You're here with Amanda Hall Psychic all the way from the Gold Coast in Australia. I hope you've had an absolutely sensational and amazing week like I know so many of our viewers have over the last 7 days, because I've been getting lots and lots of personal private messages and things like that telling me how excited they are that 2018 is really starting to shape up to be everything that they expected it. Look, I know we're only a couple of weeks into the new year, but that's always a really good indication. I always look at what sort of messages come in the first 4 weeks of the year to get a general feel of how people are handling the new year, the energy, how they feel that the year's going to take place for them. And it's been right across the board, all different star signs. It's not just one particular area of the zodiac that seem to be feeling very renewed and very excited. And I think that's really good, because it's been a long time, I think, since collectively as a group, we've all sort of started to feel like we've got something positive to look forward to. And that could be partly in tune with, you know, where the planets are sitting at the moment. And it could just be that we're all sick to death of everything sort of seeming like it was a struggle and we weren't happy with what was going on politically in our own country and around the world. Maybe we've all collectively as a group have changed our consciousness, have changed our thoughts and thought, no, hang on, this year it's going to be positive. This year I'm going to have a different attitude and I'm going to have a different outlook. And that's how I'd like to sort of see it. So to kick off the show this week, I'd like to welcome everybody, particularly if you're new to the show and you haven't seen it before. We have a regular format that we follow each week. We should kick the show off with a Simply Tarot card of the week. And these are tarot cards that I designed back in 2004 with an Australian publisher that have gone worldwide. And they were designed in a way to help people come into and learn the magic of what tarot can give them. We base them on the Rider-Waite deck. They are purpose-shot photographs and they have a little basic meaning printed on the bottom of the card, which was my suggestion to help people learn at a much faster pace, which is what happens. So this week we're featuring the Ace of Swords. Now, this is a card that I remember my students used to cringe. When they used to see this, it was one of those ones they go, oh, everything had sort of closed down. They'd sort of close off their energy and say, oh, I don't like this card. And it's not a card to be feared, because the Ace of Swords is a card of frustration. And let's be practical. We can all have frustrations in our lives for various reasons. It's also the card of being a double-edged sword. Now, a double-edged sword to me can either be your famine or it can be your feast. So it can be either situation, and sometimes a combination of both going on in our lives. And it's also the card of hollow victory. And I know a lot of my students used to say to me, but what does a hollow victory mean? Now, to me, what a hollow victory means, you've been working really, really diligently, really hard at achieving something. And then when you get there, it's like, oh, is that all? I thought I would feel elated, or thought I would feel something more than I do. So it's sort of like you shrug your shoulders and say, is that all? And that's sometimes how things turn out in our lives, that when we get what we've so been desperately working towards and striving for, when we get there, it's not exactly as we perceived it would be, or it doesn't make us feel the way that we thought it should. So sometimes I think that's, you know, high expectations that we put on ourselves and in our lives, and particularly on other people, to make us feel happy. We forget that we're responsible for our own happiness, and how we perceive the world, whether we see the glass half full or half empty, is entirely our choice. It's not coming from anyone else or anybody else telling us how to perceive it or to look at the situation. It's our own energy. It's our own emotion. So therefore, we have to take responsibility for how we feel. So we're going to feature our soy candle of the week from one of my 27 in my range. And this week, I'm pleased to say we're going to be working with the new moon. Now, the new moon will transpire in the next 24 hours, depending on which part of the hemisphere you're in. It's just hit here in Australia about an hour ago. So the beginning of the new moon. Now, the new moon energy always works for about 48 hours. So you're looking at, when we work with a new moon, to me, it's a time of setting our intentions of things to be new, the things that we want to bring into our lives, the things that we particularly want to sort of maybe change or work towards, or set some new goals, or set up just new things. So how we work with a soy candle, and my new moon candle is the one we're working with, is that you write your intentions or what you would like to change on a piece of paper, It may only be one, it might be half a dozen things. And you read it out aloud and place it underneath the candle. So I'm talking about underneath. So the candle then sits on something before you put it onto the table. In this case, I'll just put a tarot card there. But you put it on something before you put it on the table. Make sure it's not in a draft anywhere near curtains. You say out loud what your intentions are that you're going to place underneath the candle. Then you put the candle on the coaster and you light it. And you really sort of focus on what your intentions are. Light your candle for an hour to 2 hours a day. I purposely leave my new moon candle and I only use it at the new moon. And, that's, twice a month or 3 times a month. I sometimes burn it for a day after the 48-hour period of the new moon. I sort of like to do things in threes, so that's why I do that. And it's sort of, I try and focus on, even if it's an ongoing project that I might be working on, say I'm working on a new course, that may go under my new moon candle for 18 months before I'm actually completed it. So, don't always think that it has to be something that we need to achieve in the next 2 weeks or the next month or even the next 6 months. It can be something that can be an ongoing project. Now, the new moon this month obviously is in Capricorn because that's where the energy is. So it is a very powerful new moon this month. We've got a lot of emphasis on energy sitting in Capricorn. There's only 10 planets that we work with in our solar system, and 6 of them happen to be sitting in Capricorn. So as you can appreciate, we have a lot of Capricorn energy going on at the moment. And for those of you that are new to astrology, Capricorn is seen as the governing energy of anything big, whether it's big business, whether it's governments, whether it's anything official, hospitals, doctors, dentists, police departments, lawyers, anything that's of an official nature is how the Capricorn energy is seen to rule or govern. Its governing or ruling planet is Saturn, and Saturn is actually back in Capricorn for the first time in 28 years. So that's the first major planet that we need to talk about. So Saturn's coming in and stabilising all of that very powerful Capricorn energy. And the Capricorn energy is an earth sign, so it's practical, it's logical, it's responsible, it likes to look at finances and money and rules and regulations and discipline and the things that we need to change. So with Saturn coming home into Capricorn, of course he's going to bring with him some structure and some discipline and sort of asking people, do you really believe in that? Is that an outworn policy? Is that an outworn thought pattern? Do we need to change something? Is there something else that we need to be looking at? And this week I'm going to say Saturn is actually conjunct or holding hands with Pluto, with Mercury, I beg your pardon. So Saturn and Mercury are holding hands. That's what's known as a conjunction. They are actually sitting next to each other. They could almost be sitting on top of each other. So what this means is it's a very good time if you really need to have a very practical sort of discussion. If it's something that you've been putting off having a conversation with, it may be with a family member, maybe with a boss, it may be with one of your friends, that you've been waiting for that perfect time where you'll be able to get your message across in a very logical, practical, dynamic sort of way. Your thinking will be clear and, it's the best possible chance to ask for a raise or go for a bank loan or even start up a new business. Now is the perfect time for that, and that will only be with us for another 48 to 36 hours. So 36 to 48 hours. So be very aware of that. It is the time that people will have their listening ears on and will be listening very intently to what you've got to say. But if you're going for something like a bank loan, make sure that it's incredibly professional and non-emotional in the way that you approach it. If you start to get emotional and raise your voice or whatever, they will just shut down. So be aware of that. Now, we also have another 4 planets sitting in Capricorn, but they're not holding hands or conjunct. Saturn and Mercury. There's sort of a little bit of a gap there. There's about a 10-degree gap or a 10-degree difference between the next 4 planets that I'm going to describe to you that are all holding hands. The first one is Pluto, the planet of transformation, which will still be in Capricorn till about approximately 2021. 20 He's actually holding hands with our new moon, and the new moon is actually holding hands with the sun. and Venus, the planet of love and affection. So if we want to look at the secondary part of the energy that's in Capricorn, Pluto is sort of leading the charge. He's saying, I want you to transform or help you transform your emotions. I want you to set wonderful new opportunities, put things down on paper, start new things, things that you can really sort of feel that you can achieve this year. You have the emotional energy in its rightful place. You've got the drive coming from the sun, and you've got the love or the passion behind it with Venus. So some people are sort of describing this as our second chance to sort of set our New Year's resolutions, and those that are regulars to the show will know I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. I prefer to work with New Year's intentions, things that we can sort of check off our checklist as we go through the year, some faster ones and some works in progress. So if you haven't already done your little list for what you hope to achieve this year as far as your intentions, and this can be separate to what you're doing with your new moon, or it can be exactly identical, it's your choice, now's the perfect time to do so. But remember that you have to be really passionate about this. It has to be something that you truly believe that you can achieve. Sometimes we have short-term projects that we can achieve fairly quickly, and others we have that are a work in progress. Now is the perfect time for that. Pluto is asking each and every one of us to make sure that we're being truthful with ourselves and what is it that we can do in some small way to make the world a better place. So hopefully, fingers crossed, with all this interaction and all this planetary energy sitting in Capricorn, that maybe some of our political leaders around the world are taking a little bit of notice and want to start playing together in the sandpit instead of trying to destroy each other. Wouldn't that be a nice change? We can always live in hope. I'm extremely optimistic that we could get some world breakthroughs in the next month or so. With so much energy in Capricorn, we can always live in hope. Now, we also have a little mini astrology lesson that we work through each week here on the show, and we're up to the third part in our series of the final planet of Pluto. Pluto is the planet of transformation, of regeneration, of death and regeneration. So it's sort of, as one door closes, a new one opens. This week we're working with the energies of Libra, Scorpio and Sagittarius. So when we look at Pluto in Libra, it's a very uncomfortable sort of dance that Pluto does here with Libra, because Pluto wants to be very slow and very deliberate and very definite and sort of wants to take his time and sort of really wants to make sure that you've got your listening ears on and you're paying attention to him. Sort of, he wants to be the boss. And Libra sort of says, well, that's all fine, but come on, hurry up, I've got things to do. You know, I've got pretty things I want to look at. I've got new opportunities to go for. I'm bouncing around all over the place, because the Librian energy is about finding balance. But it's also about wanting to make everything pretty or nice in our world and not necessarily deal with some of the harder issues. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying they choose to not to do it unless they absolutely have to. They would rather sit down and have a discussion with somebody and try and find a resolution in a calm, positive way than they would to have a screaming match. And Pluto doesn't always work on that, let's sort of sit down and negotiate and arbitrate. Pluto sort of wants to come in and run over everybody with a steamroller, and when they're flattened, he'll sort of then tell them how much more of their energy they can have back. So sometimes it's an uncomfortable fit here. When we put Pluto in Scorpio, now for many people that might have studied astrology over the years, Pluto is a recent discovery in the last 100 years, and it is now the ruler of Scorpio. In the old teachings of astrology, it was Mars. I still think Mars has a place with co-ruling Scorpio, but Pluto definitely does fit here, because Pluto can rule the underworld, and it also rules anything that's hidden from us. So Pluto in Scorpio is in its natural home. It feels very, very comfortable there. It has the ability to sort of dig deep, to delve into the very deep emotional energy of the Scorpio energy, to look underneath the crevices, to sort of, you know, go right down there and right to the bottom and come back up again and go back down again and come back up again if that's what's needed. But it also has the ability to make Scorpio hold a mirror up to themselves and have a good, long, hard look at themselves instead of just criticising everybody else. You've got to have a look at yourself first. And when you've sorted yourself out, then you've got the right to turn around and start to criticise or to coach other people. Pluto and Sagittarius. Now, what an interesting combination this is, because the Sagittarian energy can be very sort of political, it can be very religious, the Sagittarian never stops learning. So they're always trying to keep abreast of anything that's happening around the place, whether it's a new way to tie your shoelaces or whether it's something really deep and meaningful and intellectual or whatever. So he can give Pluto a bit of a run for his money here. You know, he thinks he knows what Pluto wants, so he sort of sits there and has this great big long conversation with Pluto, and Pluto says yes, 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 and then all of a sudden Pluto will come back with something that catches the Sagittarian energy a little bit off guard. So I think they actually work well together because they respect each other's intellect and they respect each other's opinions, that some really tremendous achievements can be made, I feel, by Pluto and Sagittarius. So next week we'll wrap up the final part of this series as we look at Capricorn, Aquarius and Pisces in Pluto. So I look forward to joining you next week for that. So we're just about to take our first caller, and it's Alyssa in Reed Lake in Minnesota. Alyssa, are you there? Hello, Alyssa. Alyssa, are you there? Oh, it looks like we have... Hello, Alyssa. Okay. Well, so it's really interesting with things that are happening around the solar system and our universe with astrology at the moment. The other major focus that came to mind this week too was, even though we've been talking about the influence of everything being in Capricorn, the actual next person in line that would be feeling the full force of all this Capricorn energy is the opposite sign of Cancer. So for our darling little Cancerians out there, if you're feeling as if you're being pulled every which way and you don't know which way is up and which way is down and all you want to do is retreat back into your lovely little shell, then I can understand that, because you would be feeling like a tug-of-war situation with the energy that's in actual Capricorn. So we're going to try again and see if Larissa is there from Reed Lake in Minnesota. Are you there, Alyssa? Oh, it looks like we keep losing Alyssa. And we can't blame it on Mercury retrograde, because Mercury retrograde is not happening. Mercury's direct at the moment. So sometimes we have a few technical hiccups. So on the same theme of what's been happening in Capricorn, we actually will have some other residue fallout from all this planetary influence in Capricorn, and that's the other two cardinal signs, which is Aries and Libra. Now, how do I know that they're cardinal signs? Well, if we look at the 4 points of the compass, that's what Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn are, is the 4 points of the compass. So there will be minimal fallout with our Aries friends and our Librian friends. They'll be feeling a little bit sort of like as if something's stirring underneath, like, oh, maybe I should be a little bit more aware. I should be looking for new opportunities or looking to get more creative. So be aware of that, and that's good, because it's time for them to sort of really start revving their life up as well. So we're going to go to Sherry in Connecticut, USA. Are you there, Sherry? Hello, Sherry. Well, we're having wonderful fun tonight with the phones. I really sort of feel sorry for Alyssa and Sherry. We haven't been able to give them a reading as yet. So we'll just keep talking about astrology while we try and... She's there. Sherry, can I help you?
Hi there. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I'd like to know if you see what you may see around me. I've been on my own for a long time, and I was wondering if there's any positive things coming up the road for me.
Okay, Sherry, the first thing that I think that you need to sort of focus on is that you've done absolutely nothing wrong. Just because you haven't found somebody that you want to share your life with doesn't mean that, there's something wrong with you, or that you're too fussy, or that you maybe need to look at this in a different way. I feel that you've been really open and honest with yourself, and you've honoured what you're looking for. You've had plenty of opportunities where you could have gone out on dates with people that you knew right from the onset weren't a good fit for you. So then why would you invest time and energy into going on a date with somebody that you know it wouldn't go anywhere? So I think you really deserve a gold star for being honest with yourself and sort of not stepping into those situations like many other people do just for the sake of not being on their own. I'm also going to say to you, in the last 2 years, I feel that there's been a lot of other areas of your life that you've had to sort out that's kept you reasonably busy, and it's like those doors now are sort of closed. Like we've ticked all those things off the to-do list, and now it's sort of like it's your year. 2018 is going to be a year where you will attract love. I don't believe it's going to be too far away. I'm seeing around March or April a very tall, dark-headed man coming into your life. A couple of years older than you, Sherry, but that's not an issue. It's a very stable situation. He's a very nice man. He's got a nice smile. He's very steady. He's got a job. He's got, reasonable income. He's not somebody that you'd be embarrassed to be out with or anything like that. He's well educated. And the nicest thing of all is he's a gentleman. And, they're few and far between these days, and it's really nice for you to be able to have an intelligent conversation with somebody that you have immense respect for. Is there also changes coming up with the work for you too, Sherry, this year?
Oh.
Is there something on the horizon with work? Has there been talk of a potential of another job or a promotion or something like that? Because I'm seeing sort of extra training and sort of you questioning whether or not this is what you want.
Right.
You don't have to take it if you don't want it. It's all I'd ask is have an open mind when it's sort of presented to you, when it's completely different to what you were expecting. Don't just say no because it wasn't in, your short-term scheme of things. Just say, okay, well, let's have a discussion about it, and then I'll need a little bit of time to mull it over, and then I'll give you a decision. Because I think when you go away and you think about it, I think the more you think about it, the more attractive it seems to become. But yet at the first instance, it's like, oh, no way, not interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's because it wasn't where we thought our lives were going, that we just automatically say no to what we don't even totally understand. So 2018, I feel, is going to be an action-packed year. New relationship, changes with your job, and I think in the second half of the year, either renovations or changes to the home that you're living in or the potential of moving. There's a lot of change around where you're living. So I didn't feel, though, that you were planning on moving.
I was actually considering looking for something different, because I've been here for so long.
Right. Okay. But I don't know that that's going to be till the second half of the year. It's sort of like the first half is taken up with these other things, and then I think you sort of look at whether to sort of make some renovations or some changes or whether it's time to move. And it's sort of like it'll be a fairly tight race then, I think, with what you do. But I'm not seeing that till about August or September, Sherry.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to be pretty busy before then, that you won't really have time to get around to that. But this year's a really good year for you.
Oh, good. So I'll be looking forward to some. Can I just tell you one quick thing?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to take too much of your time. My daughter and I have an opportunity to go to Europe. She's hosting a young boy from Sicily, and they invited us out, and they're having a chapel wedding for my daughter out there.
Right.
I was just wondering if you see anything around that things are going to go well.
No, everything's going to be great. I think you're going to have an absolutely marvellous time. You're going to feel very much at home there, both of you.
Mm-hmm.
So go and enjoy it. I feel it's very good for you.
Yeah, I will. I will. And I thank you for taking my call tonight.
My pleasure. Have a great night, Sherry. We're going to now go to Megan in Washington Court, Ohio. Are you there, Megan?
Yes, hello.
Hello, Megan. Do you have a question I can answer for you, sweetie?
I'm just wondering about my past. Am I on the right path right now? Things have been hard since last year. I'm just trying to
I think I can go back further than just last year, Megan. I think things started to progressively get harder from about 2016. Sort of halfway through 2016 was sort of what you saw as the start of the downward decline. Yeah, look, you are on the right path. Sometimes when we sort of change direction, like you have done in many areas of your life, it might seem as if we're going backwards before we literally sort of go forwards. But you are actually on the right path, and you've learnt to say no to a lot of things, and that was really hard for you. To sort of turn around and say, no, that doesn't suit me without giving an explanation, and that's good. I feel by March, April this year, you're going to find that things are really coming together very, very well. Finances have been extremely difficult for you, haven't they? And they seem to be turning a corner in the most positive of directions, and that's good too. But I also feel that it's not just are they turning the corner. I think you've learned a lot of very valuable lessons on the financial front, and you're in much better control of where your money goes now, and that's a good thing too. So you've really had to do some tough decisions and changes in your life, but you're going to see the rewards of that this year, Megan, and I feel this year is really going to be your year. So just be aware that there still seems to be a couple of little issues that you've got to work through before we get to the really good stuff. So has there been a relationship that's been on again, off again, that you've really struggled with?
Yeah.
That's not clear yet which way that's going to go, and I don't want you to sort of feel that, you know, the final part of that has been played out yet. Just, if I can suggest, just take it day by day. Don't try and think too far ahead with that, because if you do, that sort of undermines the work that you've done on yourself and the other areas that you're excelling in and really moving forward in. It sort of sucks the power out of you, and I don't want to see that happening. And I feel by doing that, Megan, you'll actually get the clarity that you need about that relationship. It was an important relationship because it's helped you understand more about yourself. Not all relationships are always happy, but sometimes the most difficult relationships, we learn so much more about ourselves that we wouldn't have had if we hadn't had that experience. I mean, also by the same token, I think you've taught the other person a lot about themselves too. So it's been a very important relationship for both of you. I'm not going to say I think it's going to end. I think it's going to change. I think there's going to be some real breakthroughs there. I still feel this has got, you know, a very high chance of really becoming the relationship that you always believed it should be. And that's purely because you've both sort of worked through issues that you've both had, and that's a good thing. So, but certainly a lot more money this year and a lot more calmness. And you seem to be much more at peace with yourself. And that's an important thing, Megan, because you've always struggled with that. You've always tried to be what everybody else wanted you to be and not what Megan wanted you to be. And now you're becoming at peace with yourself of who you are, what you stand for, and what you want out of the rest of your life. And that's a really important place to be. It's a very much a position of power and self-confidence and being able to move forward very, very much in your own power, under your own steam. And that's, congratulations, it's really good. So I hope that's helped you.
I was wondering about when will I have a breakthrough with a job?
I think that's only days away, weeks away. There's a new job coming. That's what I said, finances are going to improve out of sight. So there's definitely a job there that will pay reasonable sort of money, and you'll be able to get your life well and truly back on track, Megan.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay. Lovely to talk to you, sweetie. Have a great night. Well, we're to the end of the show again. Next week we'll be wrapping up our final part on our series on Pluto, going through the signs of Capricorn, Aquarius and Pisces. We'll have our Simply Tarot card of the week, and we'll feature a new soy candle. And we'll also have our little weekly trip around the universe, see what's happening in the universe astrologically wise. If I can leave one thing with you this week, please be kind to each other. Open a car door, press the button on the elevator, do something nice for your fellow man, and always try and have a smile on your face. Sometimes that's the thing that people admire the most about you, is your smile. It doesn't matter what your physical shape or size or colour or religion is, but if you've got a beautiful smile on your face, you give somebody else the joy of you smiling and they'll smile back.